Hello, Shocker Nation, and welcome. You may recall that back in the spring, I sat down with Wichita State Athletic Director Darron Boatright to try to answer some questions that were floating out there and give you a general status update in this unique situation forced by coronavirus. Well, it's been a few months. The student athletes are back in school. Maybe even more questions are out there, and so once again we meet with Darron and we'll see if we can answer some of the questions that are out there and on everyone's mind. Darron, when we talked in the spring, that was at a point where all spring sports had been canceled, the classes in person had been canceled, and the main concern then was just making sure the student athletes finished out the spring semester academically and then start planning for the fall. And has it been difficult with all the ever-changing status of the coronavirus and various medical reports and so forth of how to proceed even week to week, let alone even month to month?
It has been difficult, Mike, and good to see you again. But yes, it's been very difficult, and just because there's so much uncertainty, and it's the only thing that I've learned for certain during this time is we don't know. And if you come across that person and he or she thinks that they know what's about to happen, my best advice would be run from that person, because there's just so many variables out there. And we're getting closer, and it's good to see college football kick off here, and we really need them to be successful and give us something to model the rest of the sports after moving forward.
Obviously, as student athletes returned to campus, there had to be some protocols established. How much of that was kind of determined by the American Conference, your conference, the NCAA, and how much of it, and maybe even more, was sort of predicated by state and county guidelines?
Most of it for now has been predicated by the state and county guidelines and those here at the university, because we're not in a competitive season of any of our sports right now. So as we enter into competition, then the American guidelines will check in, and we'll start having to follow their testing procedures and so forth. So what we have done initially is tested every athlete as they return back to campus, every staff member that works on a daily basis and interacts with those students. We've tested all those, and then so we establish a baseline of tests. And then what will happen moving forward is we'll do cluster testing on a percentage of those teams each week to identify if we have any outbreaks or issues moving forward in that regard.
And I know, for instance, some of your incoming volleyball players tested positive. Some of the freshmen, you were able to sort of isolate them together on campus for the quarantine time. And is that kind of the procedure that you'll try to take if any more positive tests crop up?
Yeah, we will. We have a plan in place to either isolate our students if they were to test positive or be exposed to someone who does. So we have some partners here in town that we can take them off campus and house them for the duration of their quarantine. And also on campus, there are some areas in Shocker Hall that are just set aside for any students who test positive, so or come in contact with those who do. So we'll handle those on a case-by-case basis and try to trace and see who they've been in most closely contact with, or most close contact with, and make the appropriate steps from that point.
Certainly there seems to be plenty of evidence that a couple of things like wearing masks and social distancing have had positive effects on preventing spread, although some of that's been controversial. So what is kind of the policy with your student athletes and your staff as far as wearing masks and those types of things?
On our campus, masks are required until you get inside of your office area where you're isolated from anyone else. So we're trying to enforce that and take heed to those things that we can so that we can be as safe as possible. So I don't know what works or what doesn't work, but we're making every effort as an institution and in our department as well to follow those guidelines that are recommended by the CDC.
I'm going to get to a couple of specific fall sports in a moment, but of the teams that normally are practicing at this time of the year, whether in season or preparing for later seasons, are all of them doing that, and how's that going?
Yeah, they're practicing. All of competitions in the fall have been postponed to the spring semester, but they're continuing to practice and keep their mind and body in shape, hopefully, and it's been going well. It's just frustrating for them, and it's frustrating for us to know that they're doing this with a lot of uncertainty, and we can't give them any specific dates or timelines of when they're going to get an opportunity to compete. And these young men and women are very serious about their competition and their preparation, and it's just hard to continue to watch them go through what they're doing without an end date or without a goal to look forward to.
And are all of the facilities that they would normally use and have access to as they practice and prepare, are those available to them? Have you had to take any particularly extended approaches to disinfecting those areas and that sort of thing?
Yeah, locker rooms mainly, are a key point of concern for us. We're really monitoring the number of the number of men and women who are in the locker rooms at the same time. So the athletes have been good about following those guidelines, and as long as they pay attention and are respectful of those rules and regulations, then they'll continue to be accessible. But if we get to a situation where we feel like that's being violated, then we'll have to shut those down. So that's something we really are paying close attention to. As far as the equipment and things of that nature, it's disinfected and cleaned after every session, whether that's an individual session or a team session. The weight room, for instance, is wiped down and sprayed. In the case of men's, women's basketball, the equipment that's used during a routine practice is sprayed and disinfected and wiped down. Balls, the blocking pads that are used sometime for post players and things like that are disinfected as well.
We talked about masks earlier. I could see where, for instance, in a sport like cross country they're practicing, that wouldn't be necessary. What about something like volleyball, where they are practicing a little closer proximity and indoors? Are masks required for any of that?
They usually wear their mask when they're not involved in the active drills. So during the active drills, a lot of times they will take them off, or I think the masks that are worn around the neck are called gaiters, maybe. And those are just very easy to pull up and down, and so when they're actively involved in a drill, they're not required. But when they're on the sidelines and not participating, then generally they're using their mask or protective gear.
What is the policy as far as what gets released as far as testing? If anyone tests positive, does that get reported generally to the public or only to certain places, and how do you handle that?
We report every positive test through the university, and then the university reports that to the city and county. So we don't identify exactly what sport or who has tested positive. We just let them know that we have uncovered a positive test, and then that gets reported as a statistic as part of the university population.
We talked about, or you were fairly specific about the fall competitions being either postponed or canceled or whatever. If you would, just comment on volleyball and what went into the thinking in moving that all to the spring.
Well, the NCAA moved the championship to the spring for this 2021 academic year. So it makes sense then, with the championship moving to the spring, for the spring to become the normal playing season for that particular sport. So that's why the move was made to take all the competitions and put them into the spring semester in a shortened season.
And I think you just answered this, but I know at one point the coaching staff was looking into the possibility of, even though the conference schedule had definitely been moved to the spring, was there any possibility of playing even a scattering of non-conference matches in the fall?
Yeah, we looked at everything, and the coaching staffs with their relationships that they have regionally and nationally, it just makes sense for them to have conversations with others in the same region as Wichita to look and see if it's possible for them to play, and that was just more of a preparatory conversations just to see if maybe they were going to be allowed, if we could schedule those, and ultimately the decision was made to just move everything to the spring.
The other sport that would normally be going full tilt at this stage of the fall is cross country, and that one seems to offer a little more opportunity to conduct without some of the risks. It's outdoors. There could certainly be some spread, limited spectator participation. So what was kind of the decision with cross country being called off?
I'm not sure. Everything that went into that decision, the travel and the crossing of state lines and the various state and local regulations that are in place, that played a part. You know, as of last week, cross country was just canceled. Well, as of yesterday, it's back on the table. So they're looking at the possibility of a spring championship for cross country now. So that wasn't the case on Monday, but that was the case yesterday. So we'll see how that goes. And you know, most of those men and women compete in distance events for indoor and outdoor track. So that would be putting them into a third season all in one semester. So that would be a pretty heavy load for them.
And you mentioned the upcoming scrimmages, inter-squad scrimmages, excuse me, for volleyball. And I know you've already kind of announced a plan as far as allowing spectators, but that there will be distancing with the seating, and I'm sure that's taken a lot of work and consideration just to develop that plan.
It has. You know, I really take my hat off to Brad Pittman, our Senior Associate AD over game operations and facilities. He's really been put through the ringer all spring and summer of just continuing to look at plans and options and adjust those. He's in close communication with the city and county on the guidelines on what is allowed and how we can maximize the people coming in and the procedures that they have to go through to be able to be allowed in. If you walk through our arena now, you see that every other row is already blocked off. We miss our people. This is a people business, and our community really supports our student athletes in the various competitions that they take place. So we're looking forward to just having some of them back here in Charles Koch Arena.
What about concession areas and that sort of thing that are sort of amenities that go with attending a live sports event?
We will have concessions available. There may be some guidelines in terms of which way you need to walk throughout the concourse so that we're not passing by each other face to face. Maybe everyone is walking the same direction, and it'll be different and it'll be frustrating for some of us, and you know, we're expecting that, but we'll be able to serve our concessions in a prepackaged environment.
And I think maybe the biggest question on people's minds is, what about the basketball season? And do you have any sense at all of what that may look like, when it may start, et cetera?
Well, now that football has started, we've started to talk about basketball. So as I was entering the arena today to come visit with you, I was talking with our representative from the American Athletic Conference, and just on what's the latest. And potentially we're looking at a traditional practice date now of maybe, and this is all speculative, but maybe October 14th, like it used to be, and then looking into a post-Thanksgiving shortened season where maybe we get, you know, hopefully we'll be able to get 22 to 25 games in prior to conference tournaments, if those even happen. You're starting to hear discussion about bubbles throughout the country, or in a few locations with the success that the NBA has had. People are looking into that, and the only thing that makes that possible is the fact that most of the classes are online, and our students wouldn't have to miss any classes traditionally like we know them. They would, there's no difference in doing those classes in their dorm room or apartment and doing it at a location off-site. So we're gonna hear more and more discussion about the bubble, and if that's a possibility. So I don't know if it is for us or not, but we're going to start hearing more conversations about those moving forward.
And if you are playing in your own arena, will this kind of experiment with the volleyball inter-squads give you some preparation, some idea of how to better conduct that? But with basketball, is it also possibly going to mean having to structure your season ticket situation so some can come to some games and alternate or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be complicated, complex, and frustrating, for our loyal fans. And anytime we get an opportunity to open the doors, such as with volleyball scrimmages, we hope that it's a learning opportunity for not only us, but for our fans too. So just to get into the routine, and I think it's important for us to move through this time where we are accepting the fact that we're going to have to operate alongside this virus. I don't think there's any indication that it's going away anytime soon. So, but we're going to have to learn ways to operate alongside it and get back as close to normal as we can, and then establish a new normal in many areas as well.
And in what you just said, I'm sure you would love to be able to put out more distinct, more set guidelines on what's going to happen. But I think most people understand by now, with this unprecedented situation, that's just not possible. And hopefully this discussion will give people at least a little better idea of where things stand for now, although they may change very soon.
Absolutely, they're going to continue to change, and I think that it's important to note that if we modify our behaviors and continue to adapt to living alongside this virus, that's going to give us more and more options. If we follow the guidelines of social distancing when we can, and wearing the mask, and it's to protect each other. And absolutely, it's frustrating. There's no doubt about it. This is an unprecedented time, as you mentioned, but for us to get back as close to normal as we can, then we're going to have to adapt our behaviors.
Darron, thank you. For all of you watching this video, thank you, and hopefully this helped clear up some questions, and all of you stay safe. Hopefully there will be an opportunity for all of us to see each other in the foreseeable future.